Namaste everyone. I am Avnish from India. I hail from the state of Bihar. So welcome to another session of the podcast under Nalanda Dialogues. So the country in a spotlight today is none other than Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe was once the breadbasket of the region. It was also a storehouse of gold, the most precious metal that we know. And you never know, it can be the future superpower as well, given the huge reserves of lithium that it has. Lithium is now widely in demand because of its extensive use in semiconductor industries. So to talk about the different dimensions and different facets of Zimbabwe, its politics, culture, economy, environment, etc., we have Change with us.
Thank you.
So welcome to the program, Change.
Thank you, my brother.
We will have a very candid discussion with Change on the different topics related to Zimbabwe. So Change, shall we start right away?
No problem.
Yeah,
can start.
thank you so much.
Okay.
So Change, while we were doing the research on Zimbabwe, we came across this place called Great Zimbabwe. So it is said that it is the largest known ruins of human settlement in sub-Saharan Africa, next to the pyramids of Egypt. It is also now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Could you please tell something more about it?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for having me on your program. It's a wonderful opportunity that you have given me to share my views, expressions concerning my country, Zimbabwe, and being here as an ambassador, something I can say as an ambassador.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's an opportunity that I really thank you to give me this platform. Great Zimbabwe, as I know it, it's a historical place that is important to the country Zimbabwe. Interestingly, the name of my country, Zimbabwe, come from that place or that name, Great Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
To break it down, Great Zimbabwe, great is English meaning big, large or huge.
Yeah.
Zimbabwe, if you are to break the name Zimbabwe, Z-I, it means big or great.
Mm-hmm.
For those who did the grammatical constructions, you know the prefix, yeah. Z, it means Z-I-R, it means big. And then MBA, it's house.
Oh, yeah.
Imba. It's a Shona name meaning Imba, house. BWE, it's stone. So, great house of stones, that's Great Zimbabwe. That's where the name Zimbabwe come from. So it originated from the name, from the ancient city, Great Zimbabwe. Historically, it thrives, I think, up to 14th century, yeah. And then with time and other reasons behind the decline of, nation states, pre-colonial era, then other states developed until, the invasion of the whites. So, and then it gets the UNESCO recognition around if not 1986, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 1986.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is one of the fascinating places to visit to Zimbabwe. It is rich in history concerning Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, audience, next time you visit Zimbabwe, make sure that Great Zimbabwe is in your itinerary. So Change, like as you discussed about the colonial expansion of colonialism and all.
Yes.
So one of the impacts in Zimbabwe was the concentration of lands in a few hands.
Yes.
So, and to undo that, there was a land reform program, and the lands were redistributed to the landless Zimbabweans. But it had many positive impacts, but one downside was the decline in productivity, because they did not have access to the latest technology, farming techniques. So again, any policy decision has both pros and cons.
Yes.
So what is your assessment of this decision to redistribute the lands?
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's a good question because I'm also a beneficiary of this scheme. Yeah. If you are to say taking what belongs to you or what was once yours, it's a crime, or it would be a gross error to say so.
Exactly.
Taking you back, let's say before colonization, through the time of Otto von Bismarck, he introduced this idea of scramble and partition of Africa that led to the colonization of Africa around 1883 to 84.
Yeah.
That's where the conference was held. Then Africa was partitioned into different countries that are existing now. It should be 54 countries. Before, should be 2011, we added another country, South Sudan, to be 55. So the reason for African colonization was land, minerals, that Zimbabwe also constituted to have.
Yeah.
So when Zimbabwe was colonized in 1889, and then with the Land Apportionment Act, should be 1930, the black Zimbabweans were dispossessed their land.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so it was one of the fundamental rights, or land. It's a fundamental right by birth or naturally, something like 35 to say. So this Land Apportionment Act, it dispossessed people their access to land, productivity, livelihood, because everything is centered around land. So it was one of the reasons why people went to war to gain independence.
True.
So the first war was 1896, 1893, and then the second one was 1896, 1894, 1897, and then the second major war was 1956. That led to the independence of Zimbabwe. The main idea was land. So from 1956 up to the year 2000, or let's say up to 1980, when Zimbabwe got independence, the Lancaster House Conference that led to the independence of Zimbabwe, it gives the colonial government an opportunity to return land back to Zimbabweans on a willing buyer, willing seller. It means if you're not willing to sell your land, the whites will remain with the land.
Oh.
But how can you sell me the things that you have taken from me? So you'd find it took time for the British, because we were colonized by Britain, to sell their land. I'm just saying their land, but yes, because they...
Your land, yeah, exactly.
So they were not willing to sell, but the government of Zimbabwe was willing to buy. So the government of Zimbabwe will buy the land and then distribute to the people. So it took time until the year 1999, year 2000. That's where the most well-known issue centered around the fast track land reform program that we are talking about. So during that time, Zimbabwe was known as, like what you mentioned, the bread basket. It used to supply the whole of Africa, and maybe, if I'm not mistaken, the world at large can export some other products. So that process of taking land now, it affected production economically, socially, was the political tension that existed in the country was not that favorable. So to some extent, production went down, and up to now it's still in the process of recovering from that land reform process, and people are gaining that momentum of producing crops for self-sustenance. So in terms of social and economic development, I support land reform program, although to the beneficiaries who were the former beneficiaries of the land, who were disposed by this first trek landform. Yeah, they claim to have lost their opportunity to thrive economically, because now it's the opposite. The tables have turned.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good idea for me.
Yeah, thank you so much for such deep insights on what actually went on the ground. But I agree that I mean, for most of us, land is not just a resource, it is an emotion. I mean, it is a matter of social status. So I mean, usurping of lands, confiscation by external agents, that is something that it is very difficult to tolerate. And number of languages that is spoken in Zimbabwe, and I don't think we could make a comprehensive list. The list is so long. So Kalanga, Khoisan, Nambia, Shona, Sotho, Tonga. So the diversity of language, it is an implication of the rich cultural heritage, because this language diversity does not come all of a sudden. It is related to a lot of factors. So if you could please explain us the rich cultural diversity and the heritage of the Zimbabwean society.
Okay, thank you for that. Zimbabwe is a diverse country in terms of language, culture. If you are coming from outside, let's say you're coming from India, you're going to Zimbabwe, you won't be able to see the diversity, because we are of the same color. Just like when I came here, I just assume everyone, it's just an Indian, just like me also. When you come, it's everyone just a Zimbabwean. But you can differentiate only by language, which is it's a medium of communication, determined by your tribe or your geographical location. So Zimbabwe is about 16 languages, official languages, the ones like those that you have mentioned. So the main languages, it's Shona, the one that I speak, and then Ndebele, and then English. So English is taught in schools as a medium across region, but these other languages, they are geographically defined. So you would find, if you go into the east of the country, you would find people speaking Ndau, speaking Manika, speaking Tsonga in the southern part, Tsonga or Shangani. And then again in the southern, you'd find Venda, you'd find Ndebele. And then towards northwest, you'd find Tonga, Nambia, Kalanga, Tswana. And Chibarwe, in the northern Zambezi Valley, that area. So those are the main languages, and then we include the sign language as an official language, because across all divides, I'm sure you can find deaf people who cannot speak either any of these languages. So we have also sign language as an official language. So we have that diversity in languages.
Thank you so much. So for our audience, please tell us one place in Zimbabwe that is your favorite and that you would like our beautiful audience to visit.
If I'm to name one place, it's very tough, because every place is beautiful.
Exactly.
Easy. Okay, let me say the most prominent places are Great Zimbabwe and Victoria Falls. Victoria Falls is one of the, they call it 7 wonders of the world. The Mount Victoria Falls. It's on the border between Zimbabwe and Zambia. But to have a better view, you need to be in Zimbabwe. So maybe just like between Bangladesh and India, but to have a better view, you must be in India. That's what is. That's how the Victoria Falls look like. I think that is my favorite place. And then if you are a historical person, then Great Zimbabwe will be your place to visit. If you are that kind of a person who loves nature, we have the parks and what, the national parks.
Yeah, yeah.
We have those big five: leopard, is it? Yeah, is it leopard, buffalo, lion, cheetah, and rhino? Those big five we have in my country. And the parks to visit, it's Gonare Zoo and Wanke National Park. Those are the two major parks. Although we may have other small parks around the country, but yeah. So the most prominent, depending on your objective,
Yeah.
yeah, and your interests. But I would put Victoria Falls as the first place.
Yeah. So yes, audience, whatever be your interest and inclination, there is at least one place in Zimbabwe to visit. Whether you are an adventure lover or interested in ancient archaeology, nature, trekking, expedition, Zimbabwe can be the go-to place for you. We came across another unfortunate incident that occurred around 2006. The inflation was at its peak, and many of us saw like photos of people carrying huge loads of cash to buy small items. So I mean, like you might have been there, right there, when these things were unfolding. But I know like these things are like I mean just a matter of time. Every country has to go through these tough phases. So what is your take on this situation? Has it improved now?
Yes, the economic situation that happened that era after the land reform program from 2000 going onwards, we started to witness the economic decline in which the Zimbabwean currency lost its value to such an extent that the inflation was skyrocketing, like what you are saying. I remember at that time, I think I was in Form 4, in Zimbabwe we call it Form 4, here it could be 12th grade. Yeah, so I could remember what I was experiencing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it happened that you could go to a shop to buy bread with a brick. If I, here the largest denomination is 500 rupees. So you can have a brick of 500 rupees, and while it's only here on the till to buy bread, suppose it was saying 500 rupees on the shelf, and then on the till the price will just go up. It's now 1,000 rupees. So it happened, to such an extent. It was a miserable situation. Of course, I remember when I wanted to write my 12th grade examinations, we pay what we call examination fee. So actually, the money that were gazetted by the state to say if you want to write exam, you pay, let's say, 1,000 rupees. Then after we have sourced that money, I failed to pay. To pay the maximum number of subjects that I wanted to write, because it has lost its value. It was no longer able to pay that those numbers. So I had to cut off let's say I wanted to write 8 subjects, I couldn't. Then I had to reduce to 5. So up to 2008, because it was a political economy situation, we witnessed a government of national unity between the two political parties, that is ZANU-PF, the ruling party, and the opposition. It was Movement for Democratic Change, MDC. So they formed a unity government that led to a multi-currency system in which we were able to use the US dollar, the South African rand, and the Botswana pula. Those 3 currencies were used as with the US as the best currency. So the economy stabilized in that phase from 2009 up to 2013. And then in 2013, the government of national unity ended when the elections were held. So, and then the ZANU-PF won the elections, and it continued with the ruling, and then everything was fine until 2017. We're using the US dollars as our currency, In 2017, the president, Robert Mugabe, I'm sure he's well-known worldwide leader, that guy. He was overthrown from power, and then it started 2018.
Yeah.
So the current trending now of the economic decline started from 2018. Is the one that people now talking about, of which I'm sure my government now is stabilizing it because they have introduced this gold coin method. I don't know how the economics and finances operate, but I'm sure now the inflation is declining. Yeah, and I was not surprised when I came here. The students from MBA, Masters in
Business Administration.
Yeah, that was the first question they asked me about. Can you give us this Zimbabwean money? So people think that that time what happened is still happening now. No? As of now, everything is now fine. So if you come, we're using the Zimbabwean dollars there and the US dollars there.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. I hope that everything goes well, and the next podcast with you we record in Zimbabwe. Other way around. Yeah.
You must come.
Yeah. So another very interesting thing we came across was, despite these economic challenges, Zimbabwe has come up with a very robust Vision 2030 program.
Yes.
So the idea is to catapult Zimbabwe into an upper middle income country by 2030. So I seriously hope that target is achieved. But what is more important at this stage is, despite the economy being at the lowest ebb, the government and the society is very hopeful that they will bounce back. So the very fact that this plan has been chalked out conveys a lot about the optimism of the Zimbabwean people. So your take on this, please.
Yeah, I would say, okay, this idea of rebounding Zimbabwe back to be an economic hub of Africa, or to have an economic footprint on the world, started in 2018 when the new president came in. That is the current president, who was the former vice president. So he came out with this Vision 2030. Zimbabwe was isolated from the world with the economic sanctions that were placed after the land reform program that we are talking about. So he come with a mantra to say Zimbabwe is open for business, to re-engage with those countries that have isolated it, and to engage with those that Zimbabwe was not part, those countries that it has never engaged with. So re-engage, engage, and then in the process there is opening up of business opportunities. So towards achievement of sustainable development at a global perspective and within the local context, with these pillars that the government is taking in, I'm sure Zimbabwe is in the right track to achieve the Vision 2030, to be a middle income economy by 2030. So without this the implementation of this blueprint and the master plan, and 2030, it's a tagline, because that's where the sustainable development goals of the United Nations.
SDG targets.
So it's going in line with the global trending, something like that. So I'm sure we are in the proper trajectory. Let's wait and see until 2030, but there's a positive.
So the target is very smartly aligned with the SDG goals that we have for the entire world. So next thing our audience is interested in knowing is, tell us about one food item from Zimbabwe that you would like our audience to try when they next visit Zimbabwe.
Okay, food. our traditional food or our staple, it's maize. Out of maize, we produce sadza. Sadza, it's like thick porridge. Yeah, you ground maize into powder flour. And then you prepare sadza. So we use meat or vegetables as relish. Like what we eat here in India. Let's say here you have your biryani, where you have rice and chicken and the like. So in Zimbabwe we have sadza. But if you are someone who is into food, like you ask for gango. Gango is a mixture of chicken pieces, food, intestine, liver. They are cooked in one dish, something in a stew, something like that. Yeah, that is the.
So audience, there you go. You can pause the video and note down the items that Change has just explained. But you must try it next time you visit Zimbabwe.
Licking your fingers.
So Change, and this point was something that made us really very hopeful. Lithium, Zimbabwe is the storehouse of lithium, and the semiconductor industry is heavily dependent on lithium these days. And everything is being automated, and this cannot be achieved without lithium. So Bitika mines, that is around 308 kilometers south of Harare, the capital, that is the largest storehouse of lithium. But Zimbabwe has recently banned the export of raw lithium. So now the lithium has to be processed in Zimbabwe and then exported. So again, as with any other policy decision, it has both sides of the coin. So please throw some light on this recent decision.
I applaud the idea that has been taken by my government to ban export of unprocessed lithium. It didn't start with the lithium. During the time of former President Robert Mugabe, he introduced the idea of beneficiation. You know, minerals are exported like in raw form. And their market value is very low. And then when we import the products that have been produced by our minerals, the value is high. So the idea to say we must process minerals within our borders and then export as process the products will fetch it will have an economic value on the market. When it comes to lithium, Zimbabwe is it's on the top 5 of the global, if I'm not mistaken, global producers of lithium. And it has the capacity to meet about 20% of the global demand of lithium. So it is one of the powerhouse to lithium production. So exporting it as a raw product, it will make these developed countries, I'm sure China, Japan, US, who have that technology to process and produce this, let's say, the semiconductor industry. So it's a good opportunity, because by blocking export, it will bring investors to the country, because it's now an opportunity for them to bring manufacturing and processing industries within the country that will create job opportunities, economic recovery. So it means more development will take place. As a result of that banning. And you know, towards the green economy, lithium is important towards that aspect. So it is very a promising idea. I'm sure it was implemented 3rd of January. So it's just about 3 months after the ban. So we'll see how the government will do and the economic recovery will take place. But as I foresee, it's a good idea.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure that it will lead to the generation of employment, the capacity building of the local enterprise also, and not just that. I am sure it will have a cascading effect on the different sectors of the economy.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we have a similar policy, Make in India, here in India. Like the emphasis is on urging the corporates to actually make their products here in India,
Yes.
both for local consumption and for export market. Yeah. So change, any discussion about Zimbabwe is incomplete without deliberating upon its national parks and forests. So it is so rich and so rich in biodiversity.
Yes.
So that is a treasure not just for Zimbabwe but the entire human civilization.
Yes.
Because ecosystem and the related ecological hazards, they don't respect national boundaries.
Exactly.
So what happens in one part of the globe affects people in another remote part of the globe. And you have done your masters in this field. So please tell us about the biodiversity richness of Zimbabwe. How is development affecting it, and what are the future prospects?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Just like the diversity that you were mentioning in the social, cultural diversity of the country, the same applies to wildlife. Not the wildlife it's not limited to wildlife only, but the natural environment in totality. Zimbabwe is, like what I mentioned before, is the big five. The big five animals.
Yeah.
We have also when it comes to rivers, we have the Victoria Falls, the Lake Kariba, and then we have the Lake Mtirikwi. Those are the water resources. And then, if you like higher terrain, we have the Eastern Highlands, that is in the border of Zimbabwe and Mozambique. And then, if you are a fan of hot and dry areas like the desert conditions, we also have we have part of the southwestern part of Zimbabwe is arid, or it experiences some desert conditions. Was the Kalahari Desert from Botswana, it expand into Zimbabwe. So, from an environment point of view, I think my exposure here, from Indian perspective, it would impact greatly, because I would intertwine my local educational background with the Indian styles here, and then it will create a strong concept that can be implemented in resource conservation towards the sustainability of our environment. That's what I can see. But Zimbabwe is a diverse, has diverse resources when it comes to wildlife, and people, they depend on these resources for livelihood. Like the historical party, when the Land Apportionment Act was initiated in 1930, people were detached from their resources of which they depend on. So even up to now, you can find, yes, we can have human wildlife conflicts. Those are natural when it comes to people living in the peripheries of the parks. But the dependence of people on environment is something that you cannot put a dividing line on. Interestingly, Zimbabwe in 1975 introduced the 75 or 85, I think I'm forgetting. It introduced the idea of where people must manage their wildlife resources, a bottom-up approach. Because you'd find the colonial parks that we inherited after independence, they were exclusionary. It's a top-down approach. But this one now, it allows people to benefit through the selling of wildlife. Let's say the elephant tusk, when they sell, people are allowed to use to harvest and graze the animals in there are buffer zones that are allowed to into the parks. And then people also, when visitors come, they see issue of selling their cultural and artifacts. So rural development, it's part of the process that is an outcome of the environment. So people are now aware of, we must conserve our natural resources for livelihood. It's no longer an issue of saying whoever have access, that's for him, but it's resources for us all.
Yeah. Yeah, very true, Change. So while we were researching, I mean, the list was almost endless. So the kind of diversity that Zimbabwe has, and now after our interaction, I am forced to believe that the kind of deep inputs that you have, we can have a podcast on every topic that we have discussed. So every single topic can be a podcast in themselves.
Exactly.
But in the interest of time, we have to keep it short. So to conclude, please tell us about one product from Zimbabwe that you would like our beautiful audience to try, and you can also give a concluding remark.
Okay, thank you very much. The item that you can buy as a remembrance, let's say you have visited Zimbabwe, can put in clothing style, it's a Zambia. Zambia, it's an clothing with the African print. You know, African print, it's just if you wear it, you can tell this is Africa. Like Isari, you can say this is India, because Isari is associated with India. So in clothing aspect, you can buy a Zambia. Or we have animal products. Like if you can buy a sandal flops. There are those that are made of, they have an animal design made out of animal skin, like goats and cattle skin. So they are designed in a way that you will remember this is an African print. Exactly. In conclusion, I would say thank you for this opportunity to give me the platform to share with you my ideas, my views relating to the connotations that the people have on Zimbabwe. Because I'm sure the Western media or the dominant media houses, they just portray the other side that we don't have, that we don't know. Because from the living perspective, the experience that I have is different from, I'm sure, from what you were thinking or what you were reading about Zimbabwe. Yes, every country has got some bad experiences, but that is part of life and development process. It goes like that. But what we need is to accept and say, this is past. How can we reconcile with our past and move on and accept our fate and say, okay, here we've made a mistake. This is what we are now. I'm no longer what I was or what you were thinking that I am. So, I think it's an opportunity to say Zimbabwe is open for business. Zimbabwe is a diverse place to visit. In terms of peace, it's a welcoming place. So I'd say in my language, I would say Ndoko Nawawea. It means I will see you when you come. So I hope you are going to visit my country.
Sure. Change. I mean, this is among the most insightful podcasts that I have had in this session. So, friends, the whole idea behind having this podcast is to present to you the raw, organic, and first-hand experience of our friends from different parts of the world. So what normally happens is people sitting in some remote corner in an AC room, glass walled chambers, they shape what we think about different regions of the world. And interestingly, we have switched off the AC in our recording room today, and I can see droplets of sweat on Change's forehead. so that our discussion is very raw and original, and change, as you said, like we will be very glad and very fortunate if we get to visit Zimbabwe, and hopefully we have our next podcast on Zimbabwe from Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for your precious time.
Thank you very much. Namaste.